I begin most of my days browsing Auto Tempest, searching all the sites across the internet to see what new Bugatti Veyrons have entered the market. And we talk a lot about Auto Tempest here. It is the most powerful way to shop for your next car. It is what I use personally, but I hope it's also what you use, not just because it'll help you find the cars that you want, but because supporting them helps them to continue to support the content that we make here on VINwiki. But the interesting thing about the market for Bugattis is that most of the cars that have been for sale for any amount of time have been for sale for a very long time. It's not uncommon to see them listed across several dealers for most of their existence, and a lot of the cars that I was looking at have been up there for like 2 years. I'm always looking for what's new, but I'm also kind of tracking how the selling prices seem to evolve over time, and Auto Tempest is a great tool for that. So please check them out at the link in the description below to help them support us and to find your next car. But I noticed something in the last few months that was a little bit peculiar, because I started to hear about some lower asking prices on Bugatti Veyron Grand Sports. Now, that is one of the rarest variants of the car. There are more Vitesses, there's just barely fewer Super Sports, and in the US there are only 14 Bugatti Veyron Grand Sports. And the 4 worst cars, by quality I'd say, are currently for sale, and a couple of them sold very recently. The one Tracy Morgan crashed, and a really nice one sold at Moto Miami, and it brought a really good number, but the asking prices just kept coming down on these 4 cars that were listed. And there's a black car with red accents that used to be a different color combination. It was repainted shortly after it was new, and it was a press car before that. There is the matte white car that Floyd Mayweather owned for a long time. There's a white car that's wrapped really badly with some ridiculous wheels on it that has higher mileage. That car is for sale. And there's an all red Grand Sport for sale. And all of these cars were kind of gravitating towards about a $1.6 million asking price, which is a lot. But I started to think, well, if I got good money selling my blue LP640 and maybe the Spiker, those might start to get me almost all the way there to buy one of these cars. And generally, I would like to buy a high mile, bad Carfax piece of junk, 06 or 08 early coupe, because I would enjoy that plenty. But those cars have really crept up in price. And there's always a challenge for the middle of the spectrum of options to be healthy from a pricing perspective, because people either want to buy the cheapest one they possibly can, or they want to buy the nicest one they possibly can. And there have been some amazing numbers on Super Sports and Vitesses and things like that in the last few years, but the Grand Sports have always been kind of a no man's land. Nobody really knows what they're worth. And if 4 of them out of the 14 that ever existed for the country are for sale, that is far more than the market could possibly absorb. So I really became fixated on one of them, the all red car. Now, this car was originally the Frankfurt show car for Bugatti, so it was displayed very publicly. There are some model cars that were widely distributed of this car. It's a pretty unique thing because it was red exterior, all non-metallic red, red interior, red everything, red accented wheels. And then after it was at the Frankfurt Motor Show, the car was sold to Birdman of Cash Money Records. I remember seeing this car growing up. It actually was here in Atlanta at some point. I saw it in person, and I just always thought it was a pretty cool looking car. I had never really thought about a Grand Sport, but the idea of the glass roof and the removable roof meant the headroom was obviously better, and I got kind of excited about this car because from the pictures I could see there were some imperfections. And again, if you're pricing it against a more competitive market, and this car's been for sale most of the last 2 to 3 years, I thought there might be a deal to be made. And so kind of as a preemptive measure, I actually sold my blue LP640 to Ryan Friedman Motor Cars. And so you're gonna see that car pop up on their website soon. I wanted to get liquid so that I could have some more buying power, and I started working a few deals on the Spiker to see what could happen. And I was actually gonna be in the area, and the car was at Bugatti Broward, kind of northwest Miami. And so I went down there and met with their main guy, Abe, and we looked at the car. Now, it was there sort of on consignment. They had looked at it in September to kind of see what it might need, and it needed a lot. And that made me very excited, because anything that a Bugatti needs is extremely expensive. But the cars are a really high quality thing, and so you can kind of kick a lot of those cans down the road, do what you have to do, and really put some miles on them. And that's what I was most excited to do. Most of these cars had low teens miles, and so that's kind of comfortable because you got a long way to go till you hit 20, which would probably be a pretty big mark of value demarcation that I wouldn't worry about as I screamed right past it. Now, as soon as I saw this car in person, I'm like, there has been a lot of paint work done. Now, most Bugatti buyers are not necessarily super discerning car guys. Even the sales guy hadn't even noticed all the different colors of red this car now was. And as we sat in the car, you could just see the terrible texture along the edge of the hood. I'm like, this is wonderful. The dash is peeling, the seats are wrinkled. It looked like it had been parked outside in the rain with the roof off at some point. And you know, rappers are not known notoriously to take great care of the cars. And as I started to dig a little bit more into this car's history, I got even more excited because in the VINwiki car story sense, this car really has it all. Birdman owned it for some time. He owned several Bugattis at different times, and he in fact gave it as a present to Justin Bieber. Justin made some posts on Instagram, driving the car, showing the car off, thanking Birdman for the gift, and I just thought, how cool is that? We've talked about Justin Bieber's street racing DUI in one of John Tamarian's cars during the Lula V days, and then not long after that, Justin seems to have sold it to Floyd Mayweather. Now, Floyd's owned a ton of hypercars and Bugattis, and I didn't really think of this car as being his, but he bought it as a preemptive celebration in the fight against Connor McGregor. I'll be honest, that's the only fight of Floyd Mayweather's that I ever watched. And so the idea that I remember seeing him kind of win because he was a much more technical boxer and that wasn't Conor McGregor's MMA background. And so, you know, regardless, he had made like $300 million on that fight. And there were all these news articles of him buying this multi-million-dollar Bugatti just a few days before the fight and going out to clubs and things like that. And so he had it for a while, and then it started to be sold through a broker that always appears in the listings for these kind of cars, Wires Only, who is run by RD Whittington. Now, Whittington name will sound familiar because he is related to the Whittington brothers, and they were known for their drug smuggling and their very untoward dealings in the 70s and 80s, things like that. They owned Road Atlanta at one point, and so, you know, he is a legitimate car dealer, but there's also some suspicious things, and he deals a lot with the entertainment industry, and apparently he sold the car to somebody named Lil Uzi Vert. I don't know who that is, but I believe he's a rapper, and I think I'd have to listen to every single rap song to know with confidence that I'd ever heard one of his songs, but I guess he's famous. He's got a lot of Instagram followers, and he did a lot with the car. He wrapped it in several different ridiculous liveries, took it around a lot of shows. There's pictures of him standing on it, standing on the seats, and again, the car had clearly never been well taken care of, but I figure that's exactly what I want. And so I'm just getting more and more excited that this is a car that I feel like I can probably make a deal on because I'm probably not really bidding against anybody else. Now, in talking to, you know, most of the dealers that I know, it seemed like the honest wholesale money on these cars was about 1.2 million, which again, you know, you add an LP640 manual and a spiker at good money together, and again, I'm not far off. I thought we're gonna be able to make a deal. I got pretty excited. We took the car for a test drive. The wing sounds like glass breaking. When it's moving around, that's gonna need some adjustment. The check engine light is flashing at me, but overall, it is a car. It goes places. I felt like I could probably limp it home and start working on it with the independent service that I've got access to here. Now, that may not be a good idea. It certainly isn't for a value retention perspective, but I'd always kind of wanted one that needed that so that I wouldn't have to worry about interrupting this immaculate service history with whatever I choose to do with it. And so this felt like the car. And when you add all the craziness in, it just becomes a great story. I love the Paris Hilton SLR. I've enjoyed the Missy Elliott Spiker. Just everybody has positive thoughts about the car, regardless of how bad that history might be. And I know that that alienates most of the buyers. And so I made what I thought was a very, very good offer. And the sales guy thought so too. He thought we're going to make a deal. Unfortunately, Mr. Whittington had sold this guy the car for well over $1 million more than I was offering, which seemed very fair and in line with the market less than 18 months ago. And the idea of losing $1 million on a more than 10-year-old car was more than he has been able to stomach. And so far, I haven't had the offer accepted. I've made some other reasonable offers, I think, on the other cars, and none of them have sold, and none of them have sold to me. So who knows? This may truly be my unicorn car in the gone in 60 seconds sense of the word, and I may chase them forever and never get one. That is probably the best possible outcome for my pocketbook when it comes to purchasing and maintaining the cars. That is a rather horrifying prospect. All the services have gotten more expensive. The tires have doubled in cost somehow. And so you're starting to see a lot more independent service, a lot more aftermarket wheels and things that I don't really love. I'd love to have everything make sense financially to do so, but I mean, these things need $200,000, $300,000 worth of work. Some of the services can't be performed at the secondary dealers. They got to go to Miller or O'Gara. And so it is a wild prospect of ownership. And then out of nowhere, 2 years worth of rainfall falls on the city of Dubai in less than 24 hours, flooding everything. The streets, the buildings, the parking decks, and that means that within a few short weeks, we may find hundreds of supercars and hypercars that just got a little bit wet coming onto the market. And so now I'm a little bit more liquid. The Blue Mercy's gone. Looks like the Spiker may leave soon, and I am ready to go shopping for something that just needs to sit in some rice, dry off a little bit, and surely it'll be ready for me to just scream down the road in once I figure out a way to get it in the US and get me a title. So who knows? We'll see what happens next, but unfortunately it was not the Birdman, Justin Bieber, Lil Uzi Vert, Whittington Brothers, Bugatti Veyron Grand Sport. Now, of course, Auto Tempest does not work in Dubai, so I'll be left to my own devices to go out and find my next hypercar, but I think I'll be able to handle it. But you should never try that. You should just go to Auto Tempest right now to find your dream car, find your next car, probably avoid the floods, the salvage cars, and things like that, although I do find with their advanced search the ability to find such things. But it is the most powerful way to shop for your next car, and you supporting them helps them support us and helps us keep making this ridiculous content that I hope you continue to enjoy. So thank you to Auto Tempest for all the support here at VINwiki over the last few years and Car Trek and everything else that we do, and thank you for supporting them.